Greetings, dear friends, and welcome to day 2 of our programming challenge. Today, we are going to be working on developing or building a calculator. Before we get started, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button below. For this project, we are going to be using a 𝐒𝐮𝐩𝐩𝐸 and the programming language Visual Basics. So this project is a VB project. So here we are going to be using VB to build a calculator. Let's move into Visual Studio. So I'm going to proceed by creating a new project in Visual Studio 2022. As I said in our first project, we are going to be using Visual Studio 2022 in all our VB projects. So I'm going to proceed by creating a new project. So I'm looking for Windows Form app, which is this one, and I click on next. I'm going to call it calculator. It's going to take some time for our Windows form to be created. So let's wait. You can see a form that has been created. So initially or by default, our form is called form 1. We are going to change it to calculator. Okay. So for this project, we are going to need a certain number of controls. Precisely, we are going to need a certain number of button control and a label that we are going to use as our display screen. So this project has two phases. On the first part of it, we are going to design the user interface of our app. On the second part of it, we are going to be programming our app. So we are going to start by designing our user interface. To design our user interface, I'm going to move to Toolbox. And as I said, we are going to need a number of buttons. So I will just search for buttons here. Okay. I'm going to call this button 1. I'm going to change its back color. Okay, so I'm just going to copy back this button and I will paste it back. I'm going to move to the text property of each of these button control. I'm going to change it to what I want. So I am done with my bottle control in terms of uh, manipulating or modifying its text or their text properties. So at this point, this is how my calculator looks like. I'm going to move back to the toolbox and I'm going to search for label. So I'm going to move to the label border style and I will change it to fixed single first. So let me change it to 3 fixed 3D, and then I'm going to look for its auto size property and change it to false. This will help me to be able to adjust. Okay, I'm going to move back here and change its text property. Okay, so I'm going to select all of these, move to the format tab, vertical. Okay, so now we are done with our design. Using Hungarian notation, we are going to change the name property of all our bottle controls or all our controls. So I'm going to start with 1. I will move to its name property. I am done changing all the name properties of our control using the Hungarian notation. So at this point, we are done with the design of our calculator. So this is it. Now that we are done with the first part of our project, which was to design the user interface, we are going to move to the second part, which is programming our app. We are going to start with programming the button click events. But yeah, instead of programming each bottle individually, we are going to use the same event handler for all buttons that represent digits. To do that, I'm going to double click on the first button. So yeah, I'm going to move here. I'm going to add all. So yeah, we have included all our bottles that we wish to apply our event handler to. So before I proceed, you have to understand that uh, to use the same event handler for all the bottles that you can see on my screen, that is for all the bottles that represent a digit, all I had to do, all I've done is to append the names of the event to the handler by the same subroutine after the handle keyword, which you can see here. You can see that after the handle keyword here, I added all my subroutines. Generally, when you press a digit button on a handheld calculator, the corresponding digit is appended to the display. So for us to emulate this behavior, we need to insert the following line of code inside the click event handler. Generally, when you press a digit button on a handheld calculator, the corresponding digit is appended to the display. To emulate this behavior, we have to insert the following lines of code to our click event. So these lines of code permit us to append a digit to another one without the screen going or clearing off. So you can see here that I have used a certain variable called bool clear display, which I have not yet declared. So I am going to move back to the form. So I'm going to declare these variables as global. Okay. So you can see that the red lines that was showing that there's a problem in the code are gone because I have declared the variables here. The next thing we are going to do is to program the period button, which is this. The first I will need to adjust its placement. So actually, image align is middle center. I'm going to change that to okay. So to program the period button, I'm going to double click on it. And here I'm going to use another method called the index of, which is a method that can be applied to any string. Remember that LBL, our display.text, is a string. Therefore, we can apply our index of, which is a method, a string method, to it. So let's do that. Here I'm going to use my if construct. This line of code permit us to add a period to a figure. So it helps us to tell the program that when we have added a period to a number, we can add another period to it. That is why we are using the if lbl display.text.index of the period when it's strictly greater than 0, then we should exit the subroutine, else we should add a period to of the number. That is what this line of code is telling us. Next, we are going to program a clear button, which is this. So to program this subroutine, we are just going to use a single line of code. At this point in time, we are going to build a calculator and test to see if what we have already programmed is working as expected. So at this point, you can see that we have already created a functional user interface that emulates a handheld calculator with data entry capabilities. Now we are going to move to our math operations. Next, we are going to program each of operation buttons. Here we have the plus, minus, multiplication, division. So we will proceed by programming those four, and then we'll continue thereafter with the other operations. So let me start with the plus button. Before I get further, it is important to precise that for the math operations, we are going to need three variables. We are going to need operand 1, which is the first number in the operation. We are going to need an operator, that is the desired operation that we want to carry. And then we are going to need another variable called operand 2, which is the second number in our operation. In essence, this is what we are trying to do. We are trying to tell a calculator that read operand 2 value on the display, add the value of operand 1 to it, and display the result. So the equal to button will be the one to perform this operation. It means that we are going to have operand 1, operator, operand 2. So before we get to that, let's first of all program each of our operation button. I'm going to start by declaring my three variables, which are operand 1, operand 2, and my operator. All of them will be of type double. And I'm still using a Hungarian notation in order to name my variables. So I'm going to start by programming each of my operation button, starting with addition. Okay. I'm just going to copy this for the others. The code here simply says that when you have clicked on the plus button, what was found on the display will disappear. So I'm going to copy this code and paste it for okay. The next thing I'm going to do is to program the equal to a click event. To program the equal to click event, I'm going to start by declaring a new variable, which will be a local variable in this case. So I have declared a variable of type double called result. And then I'm going to use a select construct to switch between different cases. Okay, but you are going to realize that for the case of the division by 0 will be undefined. So I need to come back here and adjust it here using an if. So let's build a calculator again and test if what we have done up to this point is working. So you can see by yourself that what we have programmed up to now is working as expected. All our operators, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and the equal to events are working appropriately. So we are going to move to programming the sine, cos, and tan. And it's important to note that these are trigonometric functions. And then thereafter, we are going to move to the inverse and negate our buttons, and we'll conclude with the square root button. Okay. So to program our sign button, we are going to use so this one line of code. I have simply made use of the math library, and remember that trigonometric functions are calculated in radian. So I had to multiply it by pi divided by 180, in which case I am converting the value that the user will enter into radian. So I'm going to do same for with this. We are done with our trigonometric function. For this calculator specifically, I have simply added three of them: the sine, cos, and tan trigonometric function. So next, we are going to program our inverse button. Remember that 1 divided by 0 will be undefined here. That is why we are using our if condition here to make sure that the value that we are looking for is inverse is greater or than 0. Next, we are going to program our negate button. Lastly, the square root button. So here we have used an if-else construct because you have to note that it's impossible to look for a square root of negative numbers. So we needed to take into consideration those cases and handle them. That is why we had to use the if here. If the value in the display is strictly less than 0, then a message should tell the user that he or she has entered a negative number, else is going to look for the square root of that number. So with this, we have programmed all the subroutines or buttons of our calculator. I'll move back to my design here. So I have increased my font size for my output to 11. I'm going to build this and we are going to test. So you can see that my calculator is working as expected. So thank you once more for following through this project. And remember, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button below.